Hello. Today's video is going to be a little bit different. I'm not going to be doing any, this isn't scripted. The last few videos I've been doing lately have been scripted. So this one is completely not scripted. But when I was when I was editing the last video I did, which was the abundance mindset, probably should have done this video first because it'd be more chronological, but I mean, it doesn't really matter because that video I had planned. This one I didn't. No, yeah, no, I didn't plan this. But I wanted to go over it because I felt like there were a bunch of dumb things that I heard, which now that I'm making the video 2 days later, I'm trying to figure out what I thought was dumb. But I want to go over whatever I thought was dumb in the videos. And yeah, that's just about it. And this is going over the candy store analogy. Anywho, hey, this is me actually just jumping in real quick to say that I wanna actually implement something in my videos. Just have questions for it. Hey, if you got answers, go down in the comments and mention them because I have no idea. These are genuine questions. I want to say that these are questions that I just come up with in the day, or things that happen that make me question, and I just want to get an answer or possibly an answer. And I want you to go down below in the comments and tell me what you think on these. And my first question of the day is cuteness a good thing or a bad thing for a male who is 5'4" tall? 'Cause I have no idea. Anywho, continue on.
I'm going to go into an analogy. The audience loves this. I'm going to do the candy store analogy
Oh,
here.
let's do it.
Because it's amazing to me how a lot of girls here think that your monogamy is equal to a man's monogamy. And I'm trying to say that it's not at all. So I'm going to go into a dream world real quick, real fast. Sound effect.
You got to say.
Yes, sir. So I was preemptive. So, ladies, I want you guys to imagine, right? Like, just close your eyes real quick, okay? So I want you guys to imagine that there's a candy store, okay? The women are allowed into this candy store at 18 years old, okay? They get to go in, enjoy the candy, check out the different aisles. You've been there for a few years now. You figure out that purple Starbursts are strange. You figure out that Tootsie Rolls are disgusting. Pink Starbursts are good. Yellow Starbursts are gross. M&Ms are weird. You start to gummy bears are cool on some days. Some days they're not. You stay out of this aisle. You go to this aisle, whatever it may be. And at some point, you start to figure out what you like and what you don't like. And when you start kind of hang out in certain aisles, right? The men, however, are not allowed to go into the candy store until they're 35 years old, who go into the gym for 5 years, and have $100,000 saved up, right? Mm-hmm. So you're in there, you're having a great time, 18 years old. About what, 17 years passes by or some shit?
Yeah.
And next thing you know, just fucking literally bang, right? The dudes are allowed into the candy store, all right?
Going crazy.
Only a few of them, though, because a lot of them didn't qualify. Anyway, so the guys are allowed into the candy store finally, right? But there's only a couple guys that are allowed in. But there's a huge line wrapped around the candy store for the other guys to get in. So they're seeing these guys come in, and they're cheering them on. Yeah, you guys made it in, blah, blah, blah. So these guys that made it in, they're going crazy. They're eating pieces of candy that you threw away 10 years ago. They're hanging off the rafters. They're swinging around. They're going nuts. They're jumping in the aisles. They're swimming, fucking doing snow angels with the cotton candy. Like all this crazy shit in the candy store, fucking it up. And all of you are like, yo, what the fuck is wrong with you, bro? Like, have you never seen candy before? Like, what the hell's wrong with you? And the guy stops and says, how the fuck are you going to tell me how many pieces of candy I can eat when I have to bust my ass to get in this candy store?
Mm-hmm.
Now, my answer is, how are you going to tell a man how many pieces of candy he can eat when you guys got it?
Anyways, that's about the end of the analogy. This clip that I have of their thing goes for longer than just the analogy because there are a few points that are made from the girls and fresh and fit that I want to go over. But I guess the one thing I want to say about this is, which I don't have a lot I want to say about this in particular because, I mean, a lot of it is mostly straight cut, and I'm not going to really go over the candy store thing because I already went over that in the last video. You can watch that if you want to go over a little bit more in-depth on my thoughts of the candy store analogy, but I guess the one thing I really want to go over is how in my last video I made a point of saying that the women who are now there are telling these quote unquote older, wiser, and more wealthy people how they're weird for now just having unfathomable amounts of fun times or candy, I guess, which great analogy by the way, because I mean that makes sense how I don't know. It's a stupid analogy in my or stupid way to talk about fun times, quote unquote. Anywho, that's the analogy, and then there are a few things said that were said after the analogy that I want to go over because I thought they were a lot very thought provoking at the time when I watched this. We'll see if the same thoughts come up, but anywho.
It's a candy store for free.
Yeah, you can't.
Please answer it for these girls that think monogamy is equal between men and women.
Monogamy is not equal between men and
Do
women.
I
Yeah,
still have
stop.
to keep
Yeah.
my eyes closed?
No, you got
You
Next
good.
slide's over. So for you think monogamy is the same between you and a man?
No, I don't think so, but
You said it a second ago it was.
well, I mean, I think that the sacrifice is like the same. But I don't think that monogamy is the same between
Mm-mm.
You
men
said
and women. I mean, I think that I know how men are biologically wired. They want to stick their dick in whatever they can that can have a baby, right? Like that's just how
Yeah.
biologically men are. But I mean, a man who doesn't do that and is able to go against like their biological wiring and only have sex with one person, whether that's like however many times a day they need, whatever. I think that like shows much more character in a man than someone who just goes with their impulses all the time.
And that is what my video that I made about the abundance mindset is more or less going over. Is like, because in the candy store analogy, these quote unquote older and wiser men are just deciding to have candy with any candy, or just have any candy. Man, that is a stupid analogy and a stupid way to try and argue over it, because it makes me feel really dumb. Anywho, it's because it shows immaturity to just eat all the candy, including the unwanted candy and the gross flavor. Like, it just, it's not a good representation of that quote-unquote older person. They're meant to be older and wiser, and yet here they are being immature. Like, it's very telling on someone's mentality to just be doing that, and I think it's very wrong. Because I would agree with her that choosing the candy, the good candy, is better than just having the candy. Because having the candy is very selfish and very it's just it's not good because hold on, I'm gonna think about this. Having the candy just for the sake of having the candy is immature, and whereas not having all the candy and instead choosing one candy and sticking with the good candy is not immature because it's showing that you have wisdom to choose what is good versus what is not good. It shows that you have standards for what is good, whereas the other men who don't have those standards are just choosing all the candy and any candy because they just want candy, which is immature. And continuing on.
Like I think that just shows like that you're actually with a strong man and that they're not.
He's a real man,
whore.
See,
Myron.
that sounds great on paper, but the reality is you didn't have to work to get into the candy store.
Okay, that's you know what? He's right. He is absolutely right. They really didn't because they were born with their genetics and their body. But at the same time, you're now having candy with those people who didn't have to work with it, work for it. Whereas the women who didn't have to work for it are now at the age of you and want to settle down with someone who is you, who is quote unquote wiser and mature. But now you are choosing the women who didn't have to do anything, be that have all the candy or not. the women who have had all the candy, the older women who are the quote unquote older women who have now had all the candy, it's almost as if that alone is it's a weird statement for like coming of age kind of thing. Whereas like on the men's side, the coming of age is having the wealth, having the wisdom, having the age. Whereas the coming of age for the woman would be to go through the lambasting amounts of men who aren't good. Now, perhaps there are other women who are just, I guess, 304s who are 304s for the sake of getting money, but there are also a lot of women, and in that case, those women I would say are immature. Whereas the women who are having candy, but then turn up later being the older, more mature woman, would then expect to get with a mature man. Someone who has all the stuff that she wants, but is able to choose someone who is good. Versus the 304, who is just a 304 for the sake of being a 304, or an immature person, or a bad candy. Man, this is like a bunch of leaps in logic I'm doing here to try and justify the term candy in this. It's so bad. It's so bad. But it's like it's like a coming of age kind of thing. Like whereas the men have to get all the stuff that the opposite gender wants. The women have to. I mean, they don't have to do anything to get what the men want. But I would say, in her defense, it would be a mature man to choose one and stay with one and not just have all the candy. Okay, so I'm actually going to remove the characters of. I'm gonna remove the characters of the women actually being women, and I'm gonna replace the women with being candy when I talk about the men. But if I talk about women, I'm gonna talk as if the candy are the men, because the people being there just completely just fubbernuck the analogy. If I'm being very simplistic with how I feel about this analogy. Because, I mean, the term good candy would refer to one that is mature and has their shit together. Whereas the not good candy for men would be, in the position of men, the not good candy would be what would be like a 304 or someone who is immature. Whereas from the women's position, a bad candy would be one of the men who are now just having all the candy. That would be the term of a bad candy because it is immature. Whereas the good candy, I would say, is the women who, from the position of the men, the good candy would be the women who are now wanting to settle down. Whereas from the woman's position, a good candy would be someone who doesn't go for the bad candy, who goes for the good candy and stays with that good candy because it shows a level of maturity to say, I want this one, no other candy is mine, or something of that sort.
Okay.
So that's easier for you to say, but you didn't have to work to build your value up.
Okay.
So why do you expect a guy to bust his ass and do all this,
I mean,
right, and
I
then
feel
be
like
monogamous
you
to
do
you?
have to work.
And then you think it's equal that you being monogamous is the same?
I mean, maybe not physically you have to work to get your, like, value up or whatever, but I think mentally 100% you do.
As a man or a woman?
A woman.
No, you don't. You could be a retard bimbo and still get a guy.
Right.
Yes, you could be what he said, but that doesn't mean you're going to get a good man, because I would say bad candy belongs with bad candy, whereas good candy belongs with good candy, or at least that would be what I would, within this analogy, suspect, because why would you be a good candy and choose a bad candy when you could get with the good candy? Whereas bad candy can't get with the good candy, because it would just be out of their ability, per se. And now on the statement of where fit or Myron says that she as a woman doesn't have to work for her value. I disagree with that. Now, I guess from the position of men, the value of just looking good, I would agree. I would agree because they're born with those genetics. They are born with how they look. Now, makeup be damned, but I would say that the gain through age is different between men and women, but there is an equal gain in the sense that they are opposite. Whereas men have to become older or wiser and have more money, have more fame, game, whatever, the whole shebang. The women have to, or I would say the reciprocal thing be, become a lot more mentally wiser and more emotionally strong, I guess, because they have to grow up, whereas men have to shape up. But what I would think is that the more mature person would decide to get with someone who is mature or is able to have a intellect way of doing things and living life, whereas like a because in the terms of like a red pill, I guess we can use a beta person who is blue pill as a bad candy, whereas we can use a 304 as a bad candy. Those type of people you would expect to get together because they're very yin and yang of each other as to how they work and such. You know, like the beta blue pill person is always like seen as a lower man versus the woman also being seen as a lower version because she doesn't have control over what she does with her body per se in the generality of using her body. I would, as where that happens, I would expect someone of the same stature to be with someone of equal standing in life. I don't expect someone who is broke to get with someone who is rich. I don't expect someone who is rich to go after someone who is broke. I don't expect someone who looks terrible to get with someone who looks like a badass. It's very reciprocal, which is why I expect that the good candy would be the more mentally mature person who would then get with someone who is more mentally mature, someone who is grown up, someone who knows what the bad men look like, bad men do, bad men, and the bad men who are just bad men, or bad candy, which is why they learn to stop eating the bad candy and then only eat the good candy, whereas the now less mentally mature men are going for the bad candy and the good candy and all candy because they are not mentally mature, whereas the women have gained that mentally matureness to not go for bad candy. God, this analogy fucking sucks to deal with. And to continue on.